When my family invaded my $2.3 million building like they owned it, I knew I had to teach them the coldest lesson of their lives. They thought blood meant entitlement. I was about to show them what ownership really means. I'm Julia Warren. From the outside, my life probably looks like success served on a silver platter. I'm 34, single, and own a thriving real estate company that I built from nothing. Most people assume the Warren name has always meant money. They couldn't be more wrong. My family was broken long before this incident, not in the screaming, door-slamming way you see in movies. Our fractures were quiet, whispered comments, side-eye glances, and the constant feeling that I was never quite enough. I'm the middle child between my older brother Marcus and younger sister Brielle. My parents, Thomas and Lorraine, once owned a respectable construction company in Houston. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Then 2008 hit like a wrecking ball. The financial crash destroyed almost everything my parents had built. Our family home, the vacation cabin, my college fund, all gone in months. The only thing we had left was a 2-story brick office building downtown. "This will be our comeback," Dad kept promising. "The foundation of our recovery." I believed him, until the night I overheard him on the phone, making a deal to sign away our last asset. "It's the only way to cover Marcus's debts," he whispered to Mom. They thought I couldn't hear them from the hallway. Marcus had a gambling problem. Nobody talked about it openly, but everyone knew. He'd racked up almost $200,000 in debts. And Dad chose to save him by sacrificing our last chance at rebuilding. I sat on our front porch that night, tears streaming down my face, not just from sadness, but pure, burning anger. "I'll rebuild it myself one day," I whispered to the empty street, "and no one will take it from me again." Dad signed away the building the next morning. Marcus never even said thank you. For the next 2 years, I worked 3 jobs: waitressing mornings, office assistant afternoons, and real estate courses at night. My family thought I was overcompensating, their polite way of saying I should accept my place as the responsible but unremarkable middle child. What they didn't know was that I'd secretly taken out a $12,000 loan. Every extra dollar I made went into savings for my first property flip. My father called it foolish when he found out. "Real estate is for people with connections," he said, "not for people starting from nothing." Those words lit a fire in me that would burn for the next decade. If you've ever been underestimated by the very people who should believe in you, hit subscribe right now. Trust me, what I did next will make you stand up and cheer for justice served cold. 10 years can change everything. By my 32nd birthday, Warren Realty and Developments had flipped over 50 properties. I started with condemned houses nobody wanted, renovated them myself on weekends, and gradually built enough capital to take bigger risks. I lived in a tiny apartment, drove a 10-year-old car, and poured every profit back into the business. My family watched from a distance, occasionally asking for loans they never intended to repay. "You're doing well for yourself," they'd say, as if my success was some happy accident, rather than the result of sleepless nights and bloody knuckles from renovation work. Then came the morning that changed everything. I was scrolling through commercial listings when my coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. There it was, the exact building my father had given away a decade ago. The 2-story brick office space that should have been our family's salvation. The listing price, $1.7 million. My hands trembled as I called my bank. After 10 years of strategic investments and careful planning, I had $1.85 million in liquid assets. It felt like destiny. 3 weeks later, I signed the closing papers. Cash offer, no contingencies. The broker looked shocked when I showed up alone. "Usually buildings like this go to investment groups," he said. I just smiled. "This one's personal." I spent the next 6 months transforming that faded brick building into something magnificent. 3 stories of glass, steel, and exposed brick that honored its history while showcasing its future. I named it Warren Legacy Tower, not for my family, but for the legacy I was building. By the time renovations finished, property values in the area had skyrocketed. My $1.7 million investment was now worth $2.3 million. I moved my company headquarters into the top floor and leased the remaining space to carefully selected tenants. Not once did I ask my family for input or invite them to see it. This victory was mine alone. But that didn't stop them from noticing. It started with casual comments from Mom at Sunday dinner. "Your father always had a vision for that building," she said, as if my achievement somehow belonged to him. Then came Marcus's surprise visit to my office. "Little sis made good," he said, walking around my space like he was measuring it. "This place must be worth a fortune now." Brielle started mentioning family legacy in every conversation, suddenly interested in real estate after years of dismissing my career. I should have seen the signs. The way they examined the building, the questions about square footage and floor plans, the comments about Warren family history. But I never imagined they would take it this far. I never thought they would try to steal what I built. Friday morning, 6:32 a.m., I was enjoying my first cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. A new message in the family group chat titled, "Warren Legacy Family Floor Assignments." My stomach dropped. I stared at those words, hoping it was some bizarre joke. It wasn't. Marcus had written, "Since this building represents our family legacy, we decided each of us should have a floor. Mom and Dad take the top for the family office. I'll manage the ground floor business space. Brielle's planning her design studio on the second. Julia, we assume you'll stay where you are, but please coordinate renovations with us." I nearly choked. They were dividing my $2.3 million property through a casual group chat like it was some inherited family cottage. I took a deep breath and typed one simple response. "None of you own this building. It's mine." I paid for it. The replies came flooding in immediately. Marcus, "Don't be dramatic, Jules. It's a family asset." Dad, "We raised you better than this selfishness." Mom, "Your success comes from our name. It's time to give back." Brielle, "I already told my clients about my new studio space." I sat there, hands shaking with anger and disbelief. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated takeover. Later that afternoon, Dad called. I expected an apology. Instead, he doubled down. "Julia, you need to understand how families work," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. "What's yours is ours. That's how we raised you." "That's not how business works," I replied. "I have the deed, the mortgage documents, and the renovation receipts. My name is on everything." "Papers can be changed," he said casually. "Marcus knows people who can help with that." I felt sick. Was my father actually threatening me with forgery? "Stay away from my building," I warned. "Our building," he corrected. "We're having a family meeting there Sunday. We expect you to be reasonable by then." He hung up before I could respond. I immediately called my security company and changed the access codes. Then I contacted my lawyer, explaining the situation. "Document everything," she advised. "Family disputes over property can get ugly fast." I had no idea how right she would be. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the years of sacrifice that went into buying that building. The countless weekends spent renovating properties, the business loans I'd paid back through sheer determination, the nights I'd slept on office floors to save on rent. None of them had offered help then, but now they wanted ownership. If you've ever had family try to take credit for your hard work, leave a comment. I want to know if I'm alone in this fight. The following Thursday, I flew to Chicago for a major real estate conference. I'd been planning this trip for months, a chance to meet potential investors and expand my company's reach. My family knew about my travel plans. I'd mentioned it at dinner weeks ago. I should have known they'd make their move when I was gone. At 7:43 p.m., my phone pinged with a security alert. Motion detected, third floor Warren Legacy Tower. This was unusual. My office floor should have been empty. I opened the security app and froze. The live camera feed showed Marcus directing movers who were rearranging my furniture. Brielle was hanging a massive banner across my conference room that read, Warren Legacy Grand Celebration. My parents stood in the center of my office, greeting guests as they arrived. Business associates, local reporters, extended family members I barely recognized. This wasn't just a family gathering. This was a public event declaring the building as a Warren family-owned success story. I turned up the volume on my phone and heard my father's voice. We're proud to announce the official reopening of the Warren family building, our greatest comeback story. The crowd applauded while my mother wiped away fake tears. I called my office manager, Amy, who hadn't been invited to their celebration. What's happening? I demanded. They showed up with a rental company and catering trucks, she explained. Your brother said you approved everything. When I questioned him, he showed me some document claiming partial ownership. I didn't think it looked right, but he had 20 people with him. I watched in horror as Marcus pulled down the Warren Realty and Development sign behind my desk and replaced it with a new one. Warren Family Enterprises, Estarber 1978. The date wasn't even correct. It was my father's birth year. The final straw came when I saw Brielle leading a reporter through my private office. She opened my file cabinets, pointing to property documents as if they were communal records. My sister handles the paperwork, she explained, but the business decisions are made by the family council. Family council? There was no family council. I called my lawyer again, this time barely controlling my anger. They've crossed the line, I told her. I need options. How far are you willing to go? She asked. This is your family we're talking about. I watched as Marcus handed out business cards with my building's address and his name as managing director. They stopped being family the moment they tried to take what's mine, I replied. My lawyer was silent for a moment. Come to my office first thing tomorrow morning. Bring every document you have proving ownership. And Julia, don't confront them yet. Let them think they've won. I ended the call and continued watching the security feed. The celebration went on for hours. Speeches, champagne toasts, photographs for local business publications. They were creating a public record of their fabricated ownership. What they didn't realize was that I was creating my own record, downloading every second of security footage, taking screenshots of their social media posts, claiming family ownership, and saving emails from confused business contacts asking about the new management structure. By morning, I had enough evidence to bury them. But I didn't rush back immediately. Instead, I stayed in Chicago, attended my conference sessions, and smiled for business photos like nothing was wrong. Because the best revenge requires patience, and I was just getting started. I've learned that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. My family showed me exactly who they were that night, thieves dressed in blood relations. After watching them parade around my building like owners, I could have raced back to Houston in a rage. That's what they expected, emotional Julia, overreacting again. Instead, I stayed in Chicago and started building my case. Each morning, I attended conference sessions, shaking hands with potential investors. Each night, I documented every violation my family committed. My inbox filled with confused emails. Congratulations on the family business merger, from a longtime client. Excited to meet with your brother about the first floor lease, from a potential tenant. Your father gave me a tour of your office. He's so proud of what you've built together, from a local business reporter. Together. That word burned through me like acid. I called my assistant Megan, who'd been out sick during their celebration. I need you to do something without asking questions, I said. Go to the building tomorrow. Act normal. Take photos of anything that's changed. The pictures she sent made my blood boil. My brother had installed a new reception desk with Warren Family Enterprises engraved on the front. My sister had hung her design samples in the second-floor conference room. My parents had placed family photos throughout my executive office, conveniently removing any showing just me. But the most shocking discovery came when Megan overheard a conversation between Marcus and a contractor. The renovations need to start Monday, my brother said. We're officially announcing the floor assignments Sunday evening. Once everything's signed, we'll need to move quickly. Signed. What exactly were they planning to sign? I called my lawyer, Elizabeth, from my hotel room. They're holding some kind of ceremony Sunday night, I explained. Something about official floor assignments and signatures. This is escalating faster than I expected, she said. Can you get back to Houston by tomorrow? I booked the first morning flight. Elizabeth met me at her office with 3 other attorneys. The conference room table was covered with documents: my property deed, business incorporation papers, mortgage records, tax filings. Everything's in your name, she confirmed, but I'm concerned about what they're planning. This sounds like they might try to create some kind of fraudulent ownership document. Can they do that? I asked. They can try, and if they get enough people to witness it or believe it's legitimate, it could create a legal mess that takes years to untangle. I thought about my business, my reputation, my future. All at risk because my family couldn't accept my success. What are my options? I asked. Elizabeth slid a folder across the table. Restraining orders, cease and desist letters, criminal complaints for trespassing and attempted fraud, or what? You could try to reason with them, family mediation, offer them something small to go away. I stared at her, my decision already made. They had 10 years to support my dreams. They chose mockery instead. Now they want to steal what I built? No compromises. That afternoon, we prepared court filings and official notices. I contacted my building's security company to pull all access records from the past month. I gathered emails, text messages, photos, anything that showed my family's sudden interest in my property. Then my phone buzzed with a new message from Marcus. Final family meeting, Sunday 6 p.m. at the building. Floor assignments will be officially recorded. Be there or we'll proceed without you. Dad's bringing his lawyer friend, Richard. That confirmed my worst fears. They were planning to create some kind of fraudulent document. I texted back one word, okay. Let them think I was giving in. Let them prepare their celebration. I was preparing something very different. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear, the perfect day for justice. I met Elizabeth and her team at 7 a.m., 3 blocks from my building. She handed me a thick envelope. Court orders signed by Judge Hernandez last night, she explained. Restraining orders against all 4 family members, cease and desist notices, and trespassing warnings. The police have been notified in case we need backup. Next to her stood 2 locksmith vans and a court officer. Are you sure about this? Elizabeth asked. Once we do this, your relationship with your family might never recover. I thought about Marcus measuring my office for his furniture, my sister claiming my conference room for her design studio, my parents erasing my name from the building I bought with my own money. What relationship? I replied. Let's do this. We arrived at the building at 7:30 a.m. I used my key card for what would be the last time. All access codes would change within the hour. The locksmiths went to work immediately. Front entrance, emergency exits, elevator access panels, office suites. Every lock in the building would be replaced by noon. While they worked, I walked through each floor, taking before photos for the court record. In my office, I found family pictures placed on my desk, subtle claims to ownership. In the lobby, brochures displaying Warren Family Enterprises had replaced my company materials. The evidence kept mounting. My brother had even changed the Wi-Fi password to Warren Family 2023. By 3 p.m., the locksmiths finished their work. New keys were made, only 2 sets. One for me, one secured in my lawyer's office. The digital access system has been completely reprogrammed, the security technician confirmed. All previous codes are invalid. I stood in my office, truly mine again, and felt a strange calm settle over me. The building was secure, the legal documents were ready. Now we waited. At 5:30 p.m., I took position in a car across the street. Elizabeth sat beside me with the court officer. From here, we could see everything without being seen. Right on schedule, my family arrived. My parents' car pulled up first, followed by Marcus in his shiny BMW. Betrayal arrived minutes later. They were dressed for success. Business suits, designer bags, confident smiles. But they weren't alone. A local business reporter followed them, notebook in hand. 2 couples I recognized as family friends joined the group, and an older man carrying a leather portfolio, probably Richard, the lawyer friend my father had mentioned. They walked up the marble steps to the main entrance, laughing and chatting like they owned the place. Marcus reached for the door handle and pulled. Nothing happened. He tried again, harder this time. The door didn't budge. "Is it locked?" my mother asked, looking confused. Marcus took out his phone, probably calling me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't answer. He tried the side entrance, also locked. The confused group huddled on the steps, their celebration temporarily paused. The reporter looked at her watch, clearly wondering if she'd wasted her evening. That's when I stepped out of the car. If you've ever had to teach someone a hard lesson about respect, hit that subscribe button. What happens next isn't just revenge. It's the justice that every self-made person deserves when someone tries to steal their dream. I walked toward my family with calm steps, holding the thick envelope of court documents. The shocked expressions on their faces when they spotted me was almost worth everything I'd been through. "Julia! Thank goodness!" Marcus called out, relief washing over him. "Something's wrong with the doors." "Did you change the locks?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence hang in the air as I approached, stopping about 10 feet from them. The small crowd they'd brought, the reporter, the family friends, the lawyer, all turned to stare at me. "The doors are working perfectly," I finally said, my voice steady. "You're just not welcome inside anymore." My father stepped forward, his face reddening. "What kind of game are you playing? We have guests. We have plans. Stop this nonsense and open the building." "It's not a game, and it's not your building." I held up the envelope. "These are legal documents, restraining orders, cease and desist letters, and trespassing warnings for every single person in your group. None of you are permitted to enter this property again." The reporter's eyebrows shot up as she opened her notebook. This wasn't the heartwarming family business story she'd expected. My mother gasped dramatically. "You can't do this to your family. This is about our legacy, our name." "Actually, I can," I replied, handing the envelope to my father. And I just did. Behind me, Elizabeth and the court officer approached. The legal weight of the situation finally seemed to dawn on them. Marcus tried a different angle. "Jules, come on. We're just trying to help you grow the business. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You threw a party in my building without permission. You removed my company signage. You told people you owned property that I paid for. And tonight, you plan to create fraudulent ownership documents. That's not family help. That's theft." My father opened the envelope, his lawyer friend peering over his shoulder. As they scanned the papers, their expressions changed from confusion to anger to something I rarely saw on my father's face: fear. "These are legitimate court orders," the lawyer whispered to him. Brielle started crying, always her go-to when confronted. "How could you embarrass us like this? In front of everyone? What will people think?" "They'll think exactly what's true," I replied. that you tried to steal a $2.3 million building from the person who actually earned it. The reporter was frantically taking notes. The family friends began backing away, suddenly eager to distance themselves from the situation. "This isn't over," my father warned, his voice low enough that only our family could hear. "You think you've won, but you've just destroyed this family." I looked him directly in the eyes, something I rarely had the courage to do growing up. "You already did that," I said quietly. "The day you decided my brother's gambling debts were more important than our family's future. The day you chose him over everyone else. I rebuilt what you threw away, and now you want to take it from me too? Not this time." My mother stepped toward me, tears forming. "Julia, please. This is about belonging, about being remembered. Don't you want to be part of something bigger than yourself?" "I already am." I gestured toward the building behind me. "I built something bigger, something real, something that can't be taken away by family manipulation." As my words hung in the air, the security lights around the building activated, illuminating us all in the growing darkness. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. "You have exactly 5 minutes to leave the property," Elizabeth stated formally. "After that, we'll contact the police regarding trespassing." One by one, they retreated, first the reporter and family friends, then Brielle and my mother, and finally my father and Marcus, who shot me one last venomous look before driving away. As their taillights disappeared down the street, I stood alone in front of my building. My building. The victory should have felt sweeter than it did. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing nonstop. The headline in the Houston Business Journal read, "Family dispute over 2.3 million property erupts into legal eviction." The reporter who'd witnessed everything had wasted no time publishing the story. My inbox filled with messages from business associates, clients, and even competitors, all wanting to know what happened. But those weren't the messages that cut deepest. It was the family group chat. Marcus: "Hope you're happy with yourself. Mom hasn't stopped crying." Brielle: "Two clients canceled on me this morning after seeing the article. Thanks for ruining my reputation." Dad: "Family meeting at our house tonight. 7 p.m. Be there." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called Elizabeth. "The story's everywhere," she confirmed, "but that might work in our favor. Your family can't claim confusion or misunderstanding now that there's public documentation." She was right. The article included quotes from me about purchasing the building with my own funds, details about the unauthorized party, and confirmation of the restraining orders. The reporter had done her homework, even finding records of my cash purchase. By mid-afternoon, Marcus launched his damage control campaign. He gave an interview to a local TV station, claiming everything was just a misunderstanding between siblings. "My sister is under tremendous pressure running her business," he explained, looking appropriately concerned. "We were just trying to help shoulder some of the burden. Family helps family, right?" The interviewer nodded sympathetically, but then asked the question I'd been waiting for. "But why were you telling people you owned parts of the building?" Marcus's smile faltered. "I think that's been exaggerated. We simply wanted to be more involved in the family business." "But court records show you were planning to create ownership documents without Ms. Warren's knowledge. How do you explain that?" The camera caught his expression perfectly, the look of someone caught in a lie. By evening, the story had evolved. Business publications ran pieces analyzing the legal implications. Local real estate groups discussed the case as a cautionary tale about family business boundaries. My phone continued buzzing with notifications. I didn't attend the family meeting at my parents' house. Instead, I stayed in my office, watching the sunset from the window my father once claimed would be his. Around 9 p.m., my Aunt Catherine called, my mother's sister, who lived in Austin. "I saw the news," she said without preamble. Are you okay? I hadn't expected sympathy from anyone in the family. I'm fine. Good. Because you did the right thing. Her voice was firm. Your mother called me crying about how you betrayed the family, but I've watched how they treated you for years. Always taking, never giving. Her words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. They're saying I destroyed the family, I admitted. Nonsense. You protected what's yours. There's a difference. She paused. Your grandmother would be proud of you. After we hung up, I walked through my empty building. The silence felt different now. Not lonely, but peaceful. For the first time in weeks, I didn't have to worry about who might be claiming my space or rearranging my things. The next morning, the consequences began to ripple outward. Marcus's small investment firm lost 2 major clients who cited ethical concerns after reading about his attempted property grab. Brielle's design studio, already struggling, faced cancellations from clients who didn't want to be associated with the controversy. My parents felt it too. Dad's golf buddies suddenly had excuses not to play. Mom's social circle buzzed with whispers. Their reputation as upstanding community members was cracking under the weight of truth. Meanwhile, my business remained solid. Several clients reached out to express support, impressed by my professional handling of the situation. A prominent business magazine requested an interview about maintaining boundaries in family business situations. I declined most press opportunities, letting the court documents speak for themselves. Documentation always beats accusations. By Friday, a week after the confrontation, the story had mostly faded from headlines. But its impact continued to echo through my family in ways I never anticipated. They say the worst betrayals come from those closest to you. But finding out your own father planned to commit fraud against you? That's a whole different level of betrayal. 2 weeks after the lockout, Elizabeth called me with news that made my stomach turn. Julia, we found something concerning in the documents we subpoenaed from your family's devices, she said, her voice unusually grave. You need to see this immediately. An hour later, I sat in her office staring at papers that looked official but were completely fake. Partnership agreements, ownership transfers, family trust documents, all with my forged signature. These were on your brother's computer, Elizabeth explained, dated 3 days before your confrontation. They're incredibly detailed. They would have made it look like you voluntarily transferred 75% ownership of Warren Legacy Tower to a family trust controlled by your father and Marcus. My hands shook as I flipped through page after page of calculated deception. Who created these? I asked. Based on the metadata, they were authored by someone named Richard Hanley. We looked him up. He's a retired lawyer and old family friend of your parents. The name hit me like a punch. Richard. The older man with the leather portfolio at their ceremony. The one my father had brought as his lawyer friend. They weren't just planning to claim my building, I whispered. They were planning to legally steal it. Elizabeth nodded grimly. If you hadn't changed those locks, they would have had a party full of witnesses who could testify that you signed these documents willingly. By the time you discovered what happened, they would have already filed them with the county. Unwinding that mess could have taken years. I felt physically ill. This wasn't just family entitlement anymore. This was premeditated fraud. What are my options? I asked. We have enough to file criminal charges, Elizabeth said carefully. Attempted fraud, conspiracy, forgery. Richard Hanley would likely lose his law license even though he's retired. Your brother and father could face fines or even jail time, depending on how the DA views the case. The thought of my father in handcuffs made my chest tighten, despite everything he'd done. He was still my dad, the man who taught me to ride a bike, who brought me soup when I was sick as a child. I need time to think, I said. That night, I barely slept. I paced my apartment, torn between family loyalty and self-protection. By morning, I had my answer. I called Elizabeth. File the charges, but quietly. No press releases. I won't make a spectacle of this, but I won't let them get away with it either. The legal process moved surprisingly fast. Richard Hanley, faced with irrefutable evidence, immediately cooperated. Terrified of losing his pension and reputation, he admitted everything: how Marcus approached him, how they planned the documents, how they intended to use the family ceremony to create witnesses to a transfer that never happened. Your father was hesitant at first, Richard told investigators, but Marcus convinced him it was the only way to save the Warren name and keep Julia from making foolish business decisions on her own. The State Bar Association suspended Richard's law license pending a full investigation. My father and Marcus received official notices of criminal complaints filed against them. 3 days later, Marcus called me for the first time since the lockout. You're pressing charges against your own family? His voice was a mix of anger and disbelief. After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me, Marcus? I asked calmly, besides trying to steal my building through forged documents? It's a family building, he shouted. Dad sold that building to pay off your gambling debts. I cut him off. I bought it back with my money that I earned while you were still asking parents for allowance at 30 years old. The line went silent for a moment. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice smaller. I want you to face consequences for once in your life, I replied, just like I've had to face the consequences of your actions since we were kids. 2 weeks later, the DA offered a deal. Marcus would pay a substantial fine, perform community service, and have the charges reduced to a misdemeanor if he publicly admitted what he'd done. My father, deemed less culpable based on Richard's testimony, would receive probation. They both accepted. Not out of remorse, but to avoid worse punishment. The night after they signed the plea agreements, I sat alone in my office, looking out at the Houston skyline. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. I'd won, but at what cost? Then I remembered what they would have done if I hadn't stopped them. How easily they would have taken everything I'd built. How readily they'd chosen deception over respect. Sometimes victory isn't about celebration. Sometimes it's simply about survival. After the legal dust settled, silence fell between me and my family. Complete, total silence. My phone still buzzed with their messages, but I stopped reading them. Email notifications piled up unread. Birthday cards arrived in the mail, then Christmas cards, then Easter greetings, all unopened on my kitchen counter. For the first time in my life, I created a boundary they couldn't cross. No more Sunday dinners pretending everything was fine. No more polite smiles hiding resentment. No more compromise. Just silence. Friends asked if I was okay, if I missed my family. The truth was complicated. I missed who I wished they were, not who they actually were. I missed the idea of family support, not the reality of their manipulation. Aren't you being too harsh? My cousin Rachel asked at a chance meeting in a coffee shop. They made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday, I replied. They planned to steal my company through fraud. That's a choice. Some nights were harder than others. Thanksgiving came and went. My first alone. Christmas followed. I sent gifts to my nieces and nephews through mail delivery, but didn't attend the family gathering. My mother left tearful voicemails. Please, Julia, life is too short for this grudge. We're still your parents. I didn't return the calls, not out of cruelty, but self-preservation. Every time I considered reconnecting, I remembered those forged documents with my signature, the planned deception, the casual way they dismissed my decade of hard work. Meanwhile, Warren Realty and Developments continued to flourish. Without family drama consuming my energy, I expanded into commercial property management. We opened a second office in Dallas. My team grew from 8 employees to 22. 6 months after the confrontation, I was featured in Texas Business Monthly as one of 40 under 40 entrepreneurs reshaping the state's real estate landscape. The article mentioned my independent rise and self-made success, phrases that would have been impossible if my family had succeeded in their takeover. The morning the magazine hit newsstands, I received my first email from my father in months. The subject line read simply, "Proud." I didn't open it. Marcus moved to Austin, starting over with a smaller investment firm under a different name. Brielle's design studio eventually closed, not because of our family drama, but because she lost interest, as she often did with career paths. My parents stayed in Houston, but we developed an unspoken agreement to avoid the same restaurants and events. The strangest part of the silence wasn't the absence of their voices, it was discovering my own. Without their opinions clouding my thoughts, I made decisions more confidently. Without their expectations weighing me down, I dreamed bigger. Without their criticism, I trusted myself more. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, about 8 months into our estrangement, I was meeting with a potential investor in my building's conference room. As we walked through the lobby afterward, he paused by the building directory. "Warren Legacy Tower," he read. "Interesting name choice." "It's complicated," I replied. "Family business?" he asked. I considered the question for a moment, looking around at the building I'd fought so hard to protect. "No," I finally said, "just mine." That night, sitting at my desk overlooking the city lights, I realized something important. The silence wasn't punishing my family. It was healing me. Some people say family is everything, but sometimes creating distance from family is the only way to become who you're meant to be. The most difficult boundaries to set are often the most necessary ones to keep. 10 months of silence can change a person. I'd gone from checking my phone constantly for family messages to barely noticing when their names appeared on my screen. I'd built a new routine: yoga on Sunday mornings instead of family brunch, dinner with friends on birthdays instead of awkward family gatherings. I was healing, moving forward, finding peace in the quiet. Then the letter arrived. It was a plain white envelope with my mother's distinctive handwriting. No return address, though I knew exactly where it came from. I almost threw it away, unopened, another boundary to maintain. But something stopped me. Maybe curiosity, maybe the weight of it, slightly heavier than a typical letter. I opened it standing over my kitchen trash can, ready to discard whatever manipulation lay inside. But instead of the pages of guilt and demands I expected, a single photograph slipped out. It was faded, the colors washed into soft yellows and browns by time. Our family standing in front of the original Warren construction office, the same building I now owned. Dad stood proudly with his arm around Mom, Marcus grinning with a missing front tooth, baby Brielle in Mom's arms. And there I was, about 7 years old, holding a toy hammer and wearing a hard hat that swallowed my small face. We looked happy. We looked like a family. A small note was attached with my mother's handwriting. Maybe this time, the legacy really did come home, even if it cost us everything. No demands, no guilt trips, no pleas for forgiveness or reunion. Just acknowledgement. I sat down at my kitchen table, the photograph in my hands, tears surprising me. Not because I missed them, though part of me did, but because the photo reminded me of who we were before everything fell apart. Before Dad chose Marcus over the family business. Before success and jealousy poisoned what little relationship we had left. The most painful part? I couldn't remember the day this photo was taken. I couldn't recall if we were truly happy or just posing. If Dad had praised me that day or criticized me. If Mom had actually seen me or just positioned me for the camera. For a moment, I considered calling her. 10 months felt like a long time to maintain such complete silence. Maybe it was time to extend an olive branch, to see if anything could be salvaged. Then I remembered the forged documents with my signature. The party in my building, the floor assignments, the planned theft of everything I'd worked for. I took the photo and drove to my office. The building was quiet on a Saturday, just the weekend security guard nodding as I entered. I went up to my executive suite and found an empty frame in the supply closet, something we kept for client certificates. I placed the photo inside and hung it on my office wall, not among my achievements and awards, but in a small corner near my bookshelf. Not hidden, but not prominently displayed either. Just there, a reminder. Not of family harmony. That was clearly a fiction. Not of what I'd lost. I'd given up nothing valuable by enforcing boundaries, but of where I came from and how far I'd traveled to become my own person. My mother's note wasn't entirely wrong. The legacy had come home, just not the one she meant, not the Warren family name or the construction business my father once ran. The true legacy was the strength I'd found in standing alone, the boundaries I'd learned to build and maintain, the self-respect I'd cultivated by refusing to let others define my worth. That was the real inheritance I'd claimed. And unlike the building, no one could ever take it from me. I never responded to my mother's letter. Some communications don't require an answer. Some gestures stand complete on their own. Instead, I looked at that photo occasionally during difficult business decisions, reminding myself that I came from builders. That construction was in my blood, even if the things I now built were different. A company, a reputation, a life defined by my choices rather than my family's expectations. The silence between us continued, but something had shifted slightly. Not forgiveness exactly, not reconnection. Just acknowledgement of a shared past that had shaped us all, for better or worse. Sometimes that's all you get from family, and sometimes that's enough. Life has a way of filling spaces you create. As the one-year anniversary of the confrontation approached, I realized my days were fuller than ever, not with drama or conflict, but with purpose and genuine connections. Warren Realty had expanded to 30 employees. We'd acquired a commercial property management division that doubled our revenue stream. My team had become something of a family, one built on respect and shared goals rather than obligation and DNA. I'd also developed new personal relationships. A weekly dinner group with other entrepreneurs, a weekend hiking club, even a few dates with people who knew me as Julia the businesswoman, not Julia the Warren family disappointment. The building itself had transformed too. I'd renovated the ground floor into a shared workspace for women-owned startups, charging below-market rent to help other female entrepreneurs get established. The program received attention from business publications, bringing positive publicity to replace the family dispute headlines. One Tuesday morning, I was giving a tour to potential investors when my phone buzzed with a text from Alicia, my executive assistant. Someone named Marcus Warren is in the lobby asking to see you. Security, waiting for instructions. My brother. Here. After nearly a year of silence, I excused myself from the investors and called security. Is he alone? I asked. Yes, ma'am. Says he just wants 5 minutes. I hesitated. I'll be down in a moment. As the elevator descended, my mind raced with possibilities. Was this an ambush? Another attempt to claim ownership? Or had a year of consequences actually taught my brother something about respect? When the doors opened, I saw Marcus standing awkwardly by the security desk. He looked different, thinner, with slight gray at his temples that hadn't been there a year ago. Julia, he said, straightening when he saw me. Thanks for coming down. I kept a professional distance. What do you want, Marcus? 5 minutes of your time, that's all. I nodded toward a small conference room off the lobby. 5 minutes. Once inside, Marcus seemed unsure where to begin. The confident brother who'd tried to claim my building was nowhere to be seen. My company in Austin is struggling, he finally said. I need a loan. Of course. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here for money. That's not happening, I replied, standing to leave. Wait, I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm not asking for a handout. I have a business proposal. He pulled out a folder and opened it on the table. Inside were plans for a mixed-use development in South Austin, residential units above commercial space. The concept was solid, something I might have considered under different circumstances. I need a partner with capital and experience, he continued. We could call it Warren and Warren, equal partners. I studied him, trying to see if this was another trap. Why would I ever go into business with you, after what you tried to do to me? Because I'm good at finding opportunities, always have been, and you're good at execution. Always have been. He pushed the folder toward me. Read the market analysis. The numbers work. For a moment, I felt the pull of family obligation, the voice in my head saying maybe he'd changed, maybe we could rebuild, maybe this time would be different. Then I noticed something on the second page, the proposed development address, 510 West Alder Street. The exact address of our family's original building, my building. This wasn't about partnership. This was about reclaiming what he still believed should be his. I closed the folder. Your 5 minutes are up. Just when you think the storm has passed, sometimes it circles back for one last strike. 15 months after the confrontation with my family, I believed we'd all moved on. I was wrong. It arrived like any normal business inquiry, a professional email from Hamilton Investments expressing interest in purchasing Warren Legacy Tower for $3.1 million cash. The offer was unexpected, but flattering. They were offering $800,000 more than the building's current market value. My first instinct was skepticism. In real estate, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Still, $3.1 million would provide capital to expand into the Dallas market more aggressively. Maybe it was time to let go of the building that held so many complicated memories. I asked my CFO to schedule a meeting with Hamilton's representatives. I'll need full financial disclosure and proof of funds before we discuss terms, I told him, and run a complete background check on the company. 2 days later, my financial team came back with concerning information. Hamilton Investments was incorporated just 3 months ago, my CFO explained. Their listed address is a P.O. box in Austin. The company has no website, no history, and minimal public records. Who owns it? I asked. That's where it gets interesting. The ownership is buried under 3 layers of LLCs. We need to dig deeper. I hired a specialized financial investigation firm, the same one I use for high-value property acquisitions. They had resources beyond standard background checks. A week later, they delivered their report. I opened it in my office, alone, after everyone had gone home. As I flipped through the pages, my hands began to shake. Hamilton Investments traced back to a small Austin investment group. That group was owned by a holding company called MBW Ventures, and MBW Ventures had just one shareholder, Marcus B. Warren. My brother was trying to buy my building through a shell company. I sat back in my chair, the weight of this revelation settling over me. After everything, the confrontation, the legal battle, the criminal charges, he was still trying to take what was mine. Just using money instead of forgery this time. Where had he gotten $3.1 million? Marcus had been struggling financially the last time I saw him. Then I spotted it in the report, a loan from Thomas Warren Senior Trust. My father was funding him. They never learned. They never changed. They just found new strategies. I called my lawyer immediately. Can we sue them for this? I asked. For making an offer through a shell company? Not really. It's shady but not illegal, she explained. The best approach is simply to reject the offer. But that didn't feel sufficient. They needed to understand that I would always be one step ahead of their schemes. I drafted a formal response to Hamilton Investments, professional, direct, and leaving no room for negotiation. After careful consideration, Warren Realty and Developments declines your offer. This property is not for sale at any price. I attached two documents, the investigation report revealing the company's true ownership and a cease and desist letter prohibiting further contact. At the bottom, I added a handwritten note. If you wanted to build a legacy, you should have started with honesty. I had it delivered to both the P.O. box and directly to Marcus's home address. Message received loud and clear. 2 hours later, my phone rang, my father's number. I let it go to voicemail. Julia, this is getting ridiculous, his message began. Marcus found investors who saw value in that building. This was a legitimate business offer. Your paranoia is preventing you from seeing a good deal. Call me back so we can discuss this like adults. I deleted the message without calling back. Some conversations aren't worth having. The next day, I received an email from my father. $3.5 million, final offer. This isn't about family anymore. It's business. Think rationally. I forwarded it to my lawyer with one question. Can we block their emails too? She called me immediately. Julia, I have to ask, why are they so desperate to get this specific building? There are dozens of similar properties in Houston. Why keep fighting for this one? I'd asked myself the same question repeatedly. The answer was both simple and complex. Because it's mine, I replied, and because they can't stand that I succeeded where they failed. That night, I walked through my building after everyone had gone. The smooth marble floors, the gleaming elevator doors, the oak-paneled conference rooms, all manifestations of my vision and hard work. This wasn't just about property anymore. It was about proving that I couldn't be manipulated, bought, or fooled. That my boundaries were unbreakable. I sat at my desk and drafted one final email to my father. The building is not for sale, not for $3.5 million, not for $10 million, not to family, not to strangers. This is my final word on the subject. His response came minutes later. Your stubbornness will be your downfall. I smiled as I read it. Once those words would have cut deep. Now they confirmed I was making the right choice. Some people call it stubbornness. I call it self-respect. After the shell company attempt, I realized I needed to make my ownership completely clear, not just legally, but visually and publicly. No more room for confusion or false claims. I commissioned a new entrance sign for Warren Legacy Tower. Simple, elegant bronze letters mounted on the limestone facade. Warren Legacy Tower, founded 2022 by Julia Warren, Warren Realty and Developments. The date was important, not the date the original building was constructed, but the date I purchased it. My beginning, not my family's past. The installation took place on a Tuesday morning. I stood on the sidewalk watching the workers secure each letter precisely. The building manager approached with clipboard in hand. Ms. Warren, we need to update the emergency contact protocols. Currently, your father and brother are listed as secondary contacts. I stared at him. When was this added? About 2 years ago. You signed the form authorizing... I never signed that form, I interrupted. Remove them immediately and implement new security protocols. No Warren family members are authorized for any access or information without my direct written approval. He nodded, suddenly understanding the situation. I'll handle it personally. That afternoon, I called an all-staff meeting. 35 employees gathered in our main conference room, curious about the unexpected assembly. I want to address some confusion about our company ownership, I began. There have been attempts by my family members to claim ownership or decision-making authority here. To be absolutely clear, I am the sole owner of both this building and Warren Realty and Developments. Any communication suggesting otherwise should be reported immediately. The room was silent. Most new pieces of the story from local business news, but few understood the ongoing battle. I'm not sharing this to bring personal matters into our workplace, I continued. I'm sharing it because clarity protects all of us. Thank you for your discretion. As people filed out, my marketing director lingered behind. Julia, I need to tell you something, she said hesitantly. Your brother contacted me last month about using our client list for a family business venture. I declined, but I should have told you sooner. I thanked her for her loyalty and immediately implemented new data security measures, password protections, limited access to sensitive information, regular security audits. Some called it paranoia, I called it prudence. 2 weeks later, I faced my first public encounter with families since rejecting their offer. A charity gala for Houston's Children's Hospital, an event too important to skip, even knowing they'd be there. I arrived alone, donated generously, and was mingling with other business leaders when I spotted my parents across the room. My mother saw me first, nudging my father. He glanced over, his expression hardening before he deliberately turned his back. The subtle rejection stung, but less than it once would have. I continued my conversation without pause. Later at the bar, Brielle approached. Unlike our parents, she seemed uncertain rather than hostile. "Hey, Jules," she said softly. "You look good." "Thanks, you too." The conversation felt stiff, awkward. "I'm not involved in what Dad and Marcus are doing," she offered. "Just so you know." I nodded, unsure whether to believe her. "Good. I miss you," she added. "Family dinners aren't the same." For a moment, I felt the pull of nostalgia, of wanting to belong. Then I remembered how quickly she'd claimed my conference room for her design studio, how eagerly she'd told clients about her new space in my building. "I need to say hello to someone," I said, gesturing vaguely across the room. "Take care, Brielle." As I walked away, I realized something important. I didn't miss family dinners. I didn't miss the subtle put-downs, the comparisons, the feeling that my achievements were somehow communal property. The following week, I was invited to speak at a women's business conference. My topic, Building Boundaries in Business. As I prepared my presentation, I realized how much my personal experience had taught me about protecting what matters. After my speech, a young woman approached me, clutching a business plan. "My family keeps telling me my idea won't work," she said. "They want me to join my dad's company instead. How did you find the courage to go your own way?" I looked at her, barely 25, bright-eyed but already doubting herself because of family pressure. I saw my younger self reflected in her uncertainty. "Start by trusting your instincts," I told her. "Then protect your dream like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is." That conversation sparked something unexpected. I began mentoring young entrepreneurs, particularly women facing family pressure or interference. Their stories varied, but the themes were consistent: boundary violations, undermined confidence, questioned abilities. Teaching them to protect their visions became my passion project. I shared my experiences, not as horror stories, but as practical lessons in maintaining control of your destiny. One evening, as I left the office, I noticed the security guard watching a monitor with unusual focus. "Everything okay, Jim?" I asked. "Just keeping an eye on someone suspicious," he replied. "Gray sedan. Been circling the building for 20 minutes. I glanced at the screen. The car was familiar, my father's Mercedes. "Don't worry," I said. "He's just reminding himself of what he couldn't take." As I walked to my car, I felt strangely calm. Let him circle the building all night if he wanted. The doors would remain locked, the ownership unchanged, my resolve unshaken. Some battles end decisively. Others continue in subtle ways. But when you know your worth, even ongoing conflicts lose their power to destabilize you. This building was mine. This company was mine. This life was mine. And no amount of circling could change that truth. 2 years to the day after I bought Warren Legacy Tower, I stood on the rooftop garden I'd recently added, watching the sunset paint Houston's skyline in gold and purple. My building, now valued at 4.2 million after strategic renovations and market growth, stood as a monument to what determination can build from nothing. I'd invited my entire team for a private celebration. No press, no family, just the people who had actually contributed to our success. As they mingled, enjoying champagne and appetizers, I took a moment alone by the railing to reflect on the journey. 2 years of ownership, almost 1 year since my family's last attempt to claim what was mine. The building had transformed, just as I had. My phone buzzed with a notification, an email from my mother. Saw the article about your rooftop addition in Houston Architecture Monthly. The building looks beautiful. Congratulations. No guilt trip, no demands, just acknowledgement. I didn't reply. Some bridges stay burned for good reasons. My COO joined me at the railing, champagne in hand. Penny for your thoughts, boss? Just thinking about names, I replied, and what they really mean. She glanced at the illuminated sign visible from the street, Warren Legacy Tower. Have you ever considered changing the name? She asked carefully. After everything that happened with your family? It was a fair question. One I'd asked myself countless times over the past 2 years. I could have rebranded after the confrontation, could have erased the Warren name entirely. People have asked me that a lot, I admitted. Why keep the family name on a building after my family tried to steal it from me? Why not change it to something completely different? I sipped my champagne, letting the question hang in the air for a moment before answering. Because names only have the power we give them, I finally said. When my father ran the original construction company, Warren meant his vision, his rules. When I started my company, people assumed I was trading on my family name, that doors opened because of who my father was. I gestured toward the skyline, to the city where I'd built my reputation brick by brick. Now, when people hear Warren in real estate circles, they think of me, of this company, of our reputation for integrity and innovation. I didn't just reclaim a building, I reclaimed the name itself. My COO nodded slowly. You redefined your own legacy. Exactly. And every time my family sees that sign, they're reminded that they couldn't take it from me. Not through manipulation, not through forgery, not through money. The party continued around us, laughter and conversation floating on the evening breeze. These were my people, chosen because of shared values and vision, not assigned by birth. In many ways, a healthier family than the one I was born into. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I walked through the empty building. From the renovated lobby with its gleaming marble to the top-floor executive suite where I'd built my company, every inch reflected choices I'd made, battles I'd won, boundaries I'd protected. I stopped at my office where that old family photograph still hung in its simple frame, the faded image of what we once were, or what I'd imagined we were. For a moment, I considered taking it down, the final step in moving forward, but I left it there, not out of sentimentality or hope for reconciliation, but as a reminder of an important truth. Sometimes the people who should support you the most will become the ones you need to guard against the most carefully. My journey wasn't about hatred or even revenge. It was about self-respect, about refusing to let others define my worth or claim my achievements, about standing firm when it would have been easier to give in. As I locked my office door, I glanced once more at the illuminated sign visible through my window. Warren Legacy Tower, my legacy, my definition. People often ask why I keep the family name on the building after everything that happened. I always give them the same answer. Because it reminds me where I came from and how hard I had to fight not to become them. If you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours, especially against the people who should have been your biggest supporters, hit subscribe right now. On this channel, we understand that sometimes the most important boundaries you'll ever build are the ones around your own dreams. Join our community where we celebrate the strength it takes to say no to those who try to diminish what you've built. Subscribe today because your story of standing firm deserves to be told too.